Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Balsamo. I'm with Rancho Mission Viejo, and I'm serving as the chair for South Orange County Economic Coalition this year. Nice to see so many friendly faces in the crowd, and this is our first in-person meeting in more than 2 years. That's kind of sad to say, but it's also really exciting that we've hung together and that you're all here today. We're ready to kind of enjoy our company, networking, and learn some things too. The first thing I have to do today is to introduce the elected officials we have in the room. And is Ross Chun here from Aliso Viejo? Hi, Ross. Honorable Joe Mueller from Dana Point. Mike Munzing, Aliso Viejo. And our hometown guy, John Taylor, San Juan Capistrano. Honorable Marcia Milchiker, President of the Trustees of Saddleback College. Dwayne Cave, Vice President, Molten Niguel Water District. Honorable Donald Froelich, Second Vice President, Molten Niguel Water District. And Honorable Sandra Jacobs from Santa Margarita Water District. And did I miss any electeds?
Diane Ripken, Molten Niguel Water District.
Diane Ripken, welcome. Okay, thank you, Jose. Okay. Thank you, Candace. All right. Well, that's almost the whole audience is elected, so it's good. I'd like to bring up Mike Munzing from the Aliso Viejo Council now to do the Pledge of Allegiance for us. Thank you.
Well, it certainly is wonderful to be back together, and if you'd all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great to see Mike. Many of you know he's endured a lot, and we're really proud of you for fighting through your health challenges. I've just got a few things to update you on, and actually things are going really well for South Orange County Economic Coalition. We are in a very strong financial position as an organization, probably the highest level of reserves we've had in a number of years. We're over $100,000, which is better than an annual cost or our expenses for an annual year. So good work by the team kind of staying vigilant and disciplined over the last few years to kind of keep our membership strong and keep the money coming in. Victor Cow from the Apartment Association is serving as our treasurer right now and is doing a good job on the finance side. We've got a new executive director, Victoria Hernandez. There she is, in the back. She's with Quimby Group, and unfortunately, Barbara had some health challenges and had to step away, but Victoria's come in and it's been seamless. She is working on sort of automating our systems within the organization and trying to create more consistency in kind of how we operate this organization, make it important, make it valuable for you as the members down here in South County. Working towards some of our goals this year, and we're off to a good start in terms of membership. We're adding some new organizations from the transportation realm, from the hospitality realm. We're still working on waste hauling, but there were a number of things that we set forth last fall as goals, and we're making good progress on that. I can share more detail on it later. Our PAC is well positioned. This is an election year, and I think it's, as many of you know, things are topsy-turvy, and with the redistricting, a lot of things up in the air, and sort of an interesting time, really more unpredictable maybe than it's ever been in terms of politics, but the PAC is well positioned to make an impact there, and I think that's really positive. And then, you know, South County, we're focused on quality of life and sort of preserving the safety and the health of the communities that we have here. We are a business organization. That's our primary thrust. But, you know, given everything we've been through with the pandemic, I think the partnership with government is more important than it's ever been before. Great to see so many electeds here today, and we want to be supportive of good policy, and that's what this organization is about, has always been about. You know, whether that's transportation related or housing or any other public policy issue that we deal with. So a lot of good things happening. 22, we're just getting started, really. We've got a number of other in-person events planned that you'll be able to enjoy as the year unfolds. We're going to be looking at honoring Lisa Bartlett with the State of the County, coming up. State of the 5th District and South County really is kind of an event we used to have over the years. We're bringing that back later this spring. So more to come in terms of events this year. At this point in time, we're going to have a video actually from Supervisor Bartlett's office. So please enjoy.
Hello, I'm Lisa Bartlett, Supervisor for the fabulous 5th District. I'm excited to join you today, albeit virtually, to give you a brief update on some of the new and exciting projects currently underway in the 5th District. There's no doubt these past 2 years have been quite challenging for Orange County's economy, but I'm optimistic the worst is behind us and better days lie ahead. I'm excited for the many opportunities that will help foster our county's economic growth and recovery and improve mobility throughout our region. One of the much needed and key projects in my district is the Dana Point Harbor Revitalization Project, which will provide a boost to the local economy and create many private sector jobs. This $400 million project is moving forward with an official groundbreaking date to be announced shortly. The Public-Private Partnership, or P3, with Dana Point Harbor Partners will facilitate the development of a world-class facility. More importantly, the project is being developed without incurring any public debt or using taxpayer dollars and is being privately financed and funded. In addition, it will also generate a steady revenue stream to fund critical services and programs in the harbor. I am so proud of this project and eager to see it come to fruition after so many years. It will be a great asset to Dana Point and an incredible economic benefit to the region. Keeping Orange County moving and accelerating the rate of goods movement will be key to getting our economy back on track. There are 3 significant transportation infrastructure projects that will satisfy the region's transportation needs well into the foreseeable future, including the construction of the Los Patronos Parkway extension as a non-tolled county primary arterial road, improvements to Interstate 5, including the continuation of the HOV lane between Avenida Pico and the San Diego County line, and the widening of Ortega Highway in San Juan Capistrano from 2 to 4 lanes. As we emerge from this global pandemic, I am confident Orange County's economy will come back better and stronger than before, and I look forward to hearing Professor Schwartz's forecast on the future of our economy.
Okay. Also right now, I'd like to ask all of our board of directors for South Orange County Economic Coalition to stand up just so they can be recognized. And thank you for your service. Okay. And before I introduce our speaker, just going to touch on my day job for a minute with Rancho Mission Viejo and just let you all know we're really excited. Our next village in the master plan is opening up April 1st. It's called Rienda. It's going to be a beautiful community, maybe the best we've ever done in terms of the amenities that are provided out there and the views that surround the community. It's going to be very, very special. So we're really excited about it. I think it will bring much needed attainable housing, attainable cost housing to South Orange County, and the first new homes we've seen in quite a while. So hopefully you can find your way out there. If you have questions about it, please see me after. It's been, again, a partnership. I see Sandra out there from the Water District, but we've been working very closely with SMWD and Capistrano Unified School District, the County of Orange, so many partners, and just thankful for all the teamwork to get to this point. All right, so Professor Schwartz has been at the Paul Merage School of Business since July 2008. Prior to arriving at UCI, he received his PhD from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. During his doctoral studies, he was also a visiting doctoral fellow at Yale University's International Center of Finance in 2007 and the advisory editor at the Review of Financial Studies. He received his BS from Babson College in Wellesley, Massachusetts, and prior to receiving his doctorate, Professor Schwartz worked in the IT industry writing custom applications for medium-sized businesses. We're really pleased to have UCI here today, for this event. It's the first time that we've had their institution giving our economic update. They're world-renowned in terms of their capacity and intellect on these issues. And I'm sure Professor Schwartz is enjoying being in Southern California right now as opposed to Massachusetts, where he comes from. So welcome.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, so it's really nice to be here. I think I'm the only non-elected official, so I'm going to run for school board. I don't know, what should I run for? School board? Well, I don't want to run for Congress anymore because I can't trade stocks and make money. By the way, did you know that Congress is the best investors in the entire world? That's true. So they're better than hedge funds, Goldman Sachs, everybody. So if you look from 1965 to 2015, Congress people have the highest returns of anyone in the world. So there you go. So there's a little something for you. By the way, I'll be honest, I'm the only Republican at University Hills next to UCI because we kicked Peter Navarro out. Yeah, there's only 3 people who voted Republican at UCI. Not 3%, 3 people. So anyway, all right, where did I put my clicker? So once I find my clicker, I can move the slides. I put something in my pocket. Did I leave it in the corner there probably when I was getting ready? Did I put it on the chair there? I did leave it on the chair. All right, we're off to a good start. All right, so people look back at COVID. So this is your first in-person meeting in 2 years, is that right? Very similar, right? So I know that obviously there's been some human life loss, but I think economically, how many people feel pretty good economically out there? Be honest. Everyone's feeling pretty good, right? Your house has never been worth more, right? Except for 2 weeks ago, your 401k had never been worth more, right? So I think many people look back at COVID and so there's this movie, Major League. I love movies, so I quote a lot of movies. Probably thinking COVID could have been a lot worse. COVID could have been pretty bad. But COVID was still pretty crappy, right? We couldn't be in person. You guys had to meet for 2 years by yourself. But economically, things are great. And I'm going to be honest with you, COVID's over. All right, so economically, COVID's over. So everybody knows this graph, right? This is when Omicron hit. Now, cases are like 60,000 now, so we're falling way down. But basically, we didn't change any behavior. All right, so everybody still went out to eat. So this is from OpenTable. This is the number of reservations from OpenTable over time. So the baseline here is 2019. So 0% would be 2019. And you can see Omicron hit, and pretty much everyone still went out to eat. This is the number of people that went through TSA security. All right, so you can see that Omicron hit, and everybody still traveled. Right, so during this time, I went to Arizona to give a talk, so I was on a plane as well. If you look at miles driven, so this is the amount of gasoline that's been demanded by us here in the United States, you can see Omicron hit and we didn't change our behavior. Right? So basically here in the US, no one cares about COVID anymore. Right? I'm going to say like pretty much cases don't matter for behavior. Either you're super scared and that cases could go to 0 and you're still not going to go outside, that's my wife, or you're me who like whatever, I'm a statistician, I'm 44 years old, I've had a booster, the probability of me dying from COVID is actually smaller than me dying crossing the street going into my car here to go home. That's actually a true statistic, right? The problem I have with this graph is everyone's still working at home, right? Lots of people still working from home. So if everyone's working from home, why is gasoline demand exactly where it was before COVID? All right, so if we all want Maury Povich, I'm working from home today, boss. The machine said that was a lie. You're not working from home. Nobody's working from home. I was at Disneyland a few weeks ago, and some guy was desperately running from the Star Wars ride to get his laptop open, probably because he got an email from his boss, right? No one's working from home. Totally true, right? All right, so what do people think is going to happen in the economy? So I'm going to talk a little bit about this at the end, and I know Brian wants me to talk about South Orange County specifically, so I'm going to make two comments. So one, it's really hard economically to get data just on South Orange County. All right, so I know that you guys are really important, right? But macroeconomists don't really care about you. All right, so I'm just going to be honest with you. There's a lot of truth up here at the front. Number two, California is like 20% of the US economy. Whatever happens to the US economy happens to California and vice versa, right? If real estate prices crash, I've got bad news for you. Your real estate prices are going to crash. If there's really high unemployment, I have bad news for you. There's going to be really high unemployment here. Right, so there's nothing particularly special, and I'm going to kind of make fun of California here. I'm from Boston, so we make fun of people, especially when we don't understand them, and we definitely don't like outsiders in Boston. All right, so, and by the way, as Brian mentioned, or Mike mentioned, I think Boston got 9 inches of snow this morning. So I told my parents it was really cold today. It was like 38 at my house, and now it's really cold. It's like 61 outside. They got 4 feet of snow a month ago. They hate me. It's great. I sent my dad a golfing video. All right, but in any case, we're supposed to have a really good year economically, right? So I use the Federal Reserve forecast as kind of my baseline, right? So the Fed they've got the most number of PhD economists in the United States. The Fed has access to all sorts of data everybody can't see, right? They talk to businesses, they talk to leaders, they see lots of economic data. And so you can see here the green lines are forecast for 2022, they think it's 4%. And basically that's probably about the highest it's been in 20 years, right? So that's one of the highest forecasts they've ever had, all right? And so I like to start here and then kind of do I think it's going to be above or below this number, right? So the previews, we're not going to have a recession this year by any stretch of the imagination, but I think this number, if you're going to ask me, I think this is pretty aggressive, all right? I don't think we're going to hit 4%. And the reason is not because it's not going to be a good year economically, but the reason is because we don't have enough slack in the economy to grow 4%, right? We just don't have enough slack in the economy to grow 4%. It's not because that we don't have the demand there. The demand is definitely there. Right, we just don't have enough stuff, and I'm going to talk a lot about that coming up, why we have enough stuff. And I actually think people are focused on supply chain. How many people are supply chain issues? Well, everybody, right? The issue is not really stuff. The issue is people. The issue is not stuff, the issue is people. And it's going to be an issue that happens for a very long period of time, right? All right, so problem number one, all right? We have a little bit of a coming fiscal hangover. All right, so if you liked Harry Potter, this movie and the scene where Harry Potter doesn't have any money to pay for anything and they come up with magical money. Well, the good news, the last 2 years we've had magical money. It's been given to us by John Ralphio and Tiki Tiki Tom Tom from Parks and Rec. They're just printing out money and giving it away. All right, everybody's been getting Stimmy checks. Every time I see the line at Louis Vuitton at South Coast Plaza, I'm like, there go those Stimmy checks. Only in Orange County can you have to wait 2 hours to get in the Louis Vuitton store. Just going to note that, all right? I'd see people shaking their head. All right, and then now we're like Phil Dunphy, right? We remember the first Stimmy check, all right? So what was it, $1,200 or something? And then we remember the second Stimmy check. And I think Gavin gave us $600 or something like that. And there's another Stimmy check after that. And then somehow I had magical money showing up in my bank account. I got like $167 a month for some child tax thing. I have no idea how I ever get free money from the government, but that's okay. And now the problem is, guess what? The Stimmy checks are over, right? There's no more Stimmy checks coming. All right, so this is the amount of government spending that we've had here. So the orange line is the baseline for the 12 months prior to COVID. And then I'm going to let you guess which month COVID hit. Anybody want to take a guess? Yeah, it's right here. And then it goes over for the rest of the time. My slides are a little compressed here, but that's okay. And you can see here that basically we've had $4.4 trillion of extra spending over the last 2 years. Right, the entire US government budget's about $4 trillion. Right? So in 2 years, our government spending's up over 50% from what it was before. Right? And that's all over. That $167 I got in my checking account not showing up anymore. And certainly there's going to be no more Stimmy checks coming because basically, for sure, or almost for sure, the Democrats are going to lose one of the, or both houses, for sure, in Congress. Right? This happens every time in the midterms. Always the party that won the presidency does worse in the midterms. I think it's like 95% of the time. And this is the betting markets here. You can see the betting markets are pretty confident, right, that the Democrats are going to lose the House, and more than pretty confident that the Democrats are going to lose the Senate, right? So of course, once the Republicans take over, then it's the perfect world where the government does nothing. And actually, the stock market usually does really, really well when the government can't do anything. I'm not making a political statement. That's a statement of economic fact, right? All right. So again, the second problem we have is everybody's Tony Montana. All right. I've always wanted to get a Scarface reference in one of my economic forecasts. I've never been able to do it until now. And basically, he was working at that. By the way, if you haven't seen Scarface by now, I don't have to say spoiler alert, right? All right. So he's working at this restaurant, being a dishwasher, and basically he quits and throws the towel, the apron at the guy, and says, "I'm retired." All right, and that's pretty much everybody right now. All right, so right now, this is the number of workers per month that are quitting. Right, this is the number of workers per month that are quitting. So you can see here we have about 4 million people per month that are quitting. So I'm going to do some quick math for you. 4 million times 12 is almost 50 million workers per year are quitting. The entire US economy has 150 million workers. So let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tables in here. So these tables and this one, you guys can leave now. We'll find some new people to take over. That's a lot of people to replace, isn't it? Right? So imagine we have 30,000 workers at Disney. I know Disney's North Orange County, so I'm already breaking the rules, but that's okay. We can follow along here. All right, so imagine we have 30,000 workers at Disney. 10,000 of them need to be replaced this year. Think about how much that would cost, both in terms of time and training and extra salary to get new workers to come, right? So we have lots of people quitting, all right? And so this is one of my favorite graphs. Again, I'm not sure what's going on with the funky wonky graphics here, but that's okay, you get the point. Everyone says we're 2.9 million workers short, right? So there's this kind of claim that still we need to help the economy because there's not, we still have short 3 million people from COVID, all right? And so, my answer to that is those people are never coming back, right? Never coming back. Does anybody know anyone who retired the last 2 years? Bunch of people, right? Right, because they retired because their house is worth 30% more than it used to be, their 401k is up 100% more than it used to be. Why the hell am I going to work, right? I can go on vacation permanently, all right? So these people are never coming back, all right? Our unemployment rate is already at 4%, right? Pre-COVID, it was 3.6%. So if you think about where we were before COVID, we're almost back there. By the way, 3.6% would be the lowest unemployment rate since the 1950s. Right? So we pretty much, again, as I've emphasized here, we're out of people. All right? And the bad news for us as a country is the number of people of working age is actually declining in the US right now. Right? So if you think about the number of people available to work from the ages of 16 to 64, that's the best group I can give you, the number of people is actually declining over time. Right? So we are becoming Japan. Right? Everyone's sad now. I can see the sadness. Super sad. And the bad news is, do you know how long it takes to create a 22-year-old? It takes 22 years and 9 months. Plus or minus 3, well, plus or at least 3 months probably on average, right? So you're talking it takes a long time. But of course, there's one way to quickly get a 22-year-old, and how's that? Immigration, right? Immigration, right? So I think Putin invaded Ukraine just because they needed some more people. Russia's population is declining very rapidly. But he wants the natural resources and all the other stuff. We'll get back to Ukraine. All right. So the bottom line here is that we have people missing. We have very low unemployment, but we also have 11 million jobs that are open. I can't tell you how many times in the last month I've thought about quitting UCI and going to work at McDonald's. They will give me a $1,500 signing bonus if I go to McDonald's. They will give me $24 an hour if I go to work at McDonald's. Does anybody know what $24 per hour full-time is? Anybody done that math? It's $50,000 a year. Would you like fries with that? I would love a non-stressful job at McDonald's where I screw up your order and I don't feel bad about it when I check out. Right? That'd be great. All right? So we basically have, for all of those 3 million workers that are missing, we have 3 jobs each for them. Right? And it's again, they're just not coming back. And I hate to be morbid, but of those 3 million people that are coming back, we've actually had 700,000 deaths, 700,000 extra deaths between the ages of 26 and 55 because of COVID. right? So there's 750,000 of your workers, not to be morbid, right? A lot of those workers are not coming back, right? So that's the kind of the punchline here, all right? My guess is where most of them, they're on the beach where Hans Gruber wanted to be, earning 20%, right? They're rich, they're loaded, why am I gonna work? All right, so my great-great-uncle is Milton Hershey, right? Unfortunately, he gave all the money to an orphanage in Pennsylvania. So there's an orphanage in Pennsylvania called the Hershey School. They have 2,000 kids. They have $18 billion. And I know, exactly, and I'm here with this microphone. I can't tell you how many times I told my parents to abandon me as a kid to go to the Hershey orphanage. All right. I have an 18-month-old that doesn't sleep, so don't mind me. And my wife's due in 3 weeks, so. Hey, I'm working on the supply problem for you. Plus, I always have an opportunity for that unexpected Father's Day card every year, right? So, I mean, anyway. All right, I love supply chain issues. Every day is Black Friday, right? So one of the downsides of having a very pregnant wife who has very specific food cravings at 1 in the morning is you can't get everything at one grocery store anymore. All right, so every day is Black Friday now because we don't have stuff. All right, I'm sure everybody's got supply chain issues, right? So where are the cars? Anybody try to buy a car recently? Yeah. Don't buy a car, right? So typically, we sell about 18 million cars per month when things are going well. So about 18 million cars per month. All right, so just up until last month, we were always selling about 12 million cars per month, and that's not because people don't want to buy cars, that's because there's no cars to buy, right? So last month we did 15 million, which the question becomes then, well, are things getting better, or is that just a one-time blip, right? So are actually supply chains starting a little bit better, or are we still going to go back down to 12 million cars this month, and we'll find out. I want you to pay really close attention to think about what 12 million cars looks like if we sold 12 million cars, because if you go back in time, you can see here 12 million cars puts us in the middle of the financial crisis, right? Which is a recession. I'm going to come back to that when we talk about the Fed. So just remember, if we make demand meet supply, that's at 12 million cars right now, right? The Fed raising interest rates will not create cars, right? Just remember that, right? Jay Powell has a lot of power. He can't create cars, as far as I know. Maybe he's got more power than I think. Anybody try to buy a house recently? Yeah, there's no houses to buy, right? My wife's like, oh, we should get a new house. I'm like, yes. I'll get your ice cream first. That's going to be easier for me. We'll do that. So I'm glad that there's some new houses being created, right? So housing inventory is down 70%. It's actually down more. That was about 72% last week. I didn't have a chance to update the slide, but housing inventory is really low. Where are chips? So if you work for a company that needs a computer chip, if you order it today, you'll get it in September, right? Problem is we have an economy very much built on just-in-time inventory plus global supply chain. That does not work very well when it shuts down all the time, right? It doesn't work that way, right? All right, so what happens when you have a lot of free money and you don't have enough stuff? Well, you get what we have, which is inflation, right? So wage growth here is the fastest that we've had in 20 years. Wages are going about 5% year over year right now. Sadly, that actually means that the average worker in the US is actually losing standard of living, right? Because inflation, as we'll see here in a moment, is more than 5%. All right, we see that this is the price of used cars are at 55%. I have a person I know who's much wealthier than I am, but he bought a Porsche 911 Turbo in 2019. He drove it for 2 years, and the dealership paid him $60,000 more for his car than he paid for it. I should have bought a Porsche in 2019. I could have driven it for 2 years and made 30 grand a year. I can live with that. All right? And then we have housing prices are up 20%. They've declined a little bit recently, but they're only up 18% year over year. So of course, housing prices are through the roof. And we look at generally more of inflation here. You can see inflation is the highest it's been in 30 years. So it's about 7% right now, inflation here in the US, which I want to keep in perspective. Seems really, really high, but it's really not that high, right? So just to give you some perspective, inflation in Venezuela is 100 million% per year. All right, so we'll just keep that, we'll just keep inflation in perspective, it's high, right? All right, so the one thing I do want to add here is that I think inflation is going to be high this year, mostly because a lot of things are playing catch up, right? So I actually had a new employee start at UCI. You have to bid on your rent now. You have to bid on your rent. You don't still go and like rent's $2,200 a month. You actually say how much you're willing to pay in rent, and then hope that you're the top person to bid. I'm not making that up. I'm a finance PhD. I'm really not that creative. My great-great-uncle really is Milton Hershey. If you have kids, I can tell you which parent's smarter. Does anybody have 2 kids, boy and a son? I can tell you which kid's smarter. We'll do that afterwards if you would. All right, but the problem here is you can see if you look at apartmentlisting.com or if you look at Zillow, rents are up like 15% year over year. And if you think of an apartment building, right, not everybody signs their lease at the same time, right? So these rent increases take a full year to take effect on the whole apartment building. So that's going to be a big drag on CPI this year. It's going to keep it high. All right, how is this supply stuff going to last? It's going to be always and forever, right? It's really not going to be that long, but it'll be most of this year. So the problem is everything we're short of takes a long time to fix, right? So it takes a long time to build a house. It takes a long time to make a new factory that can create computer chips. It takes a long time to make cargo ships that stuff things around. It takes a long time to increase the capacity of your port. It takes a long time to fix your supply chain. So all these things are things that take a lot of time to fix. It's not kind of like, just you can automatically, it takes 22 years and 9 months to create a 22-year-old. Right? So these are things that you can't fix quickly, and so that's why it's going to kind of be a drag here for the next year. All right, so I think it's going to take a little time for that to fix. All right, third thing that's happening, we got our friend Putin. All right, so he got bored, he was wrestling bears. What else did he do? Oh, he's had enough fun with his Russian model friends. All right, so now he's playing Risk here. All right, so he figured out that the Ukraine is weak, just like Kramer knew back in Seinfeld many, many moons ago. And so he decided to go in Ukraine. So why do we care? All right, so I was kind of having a conversation with Brian beforehand. So I'm going to make 2 predictions. Number 1, Putin is not dumb enough to attack a NATO country. Right? He can take Ukraine for free. Right? It doesn't cost him anything. I mean, not to use bad language here, but we ain't going to do shit about it. I mean, we don't care. We're not going to send troops. We're going to send troops to Romania. Who wants to conquer Romania? The only thing they're good at in Romania is math. Right? That's it. They're not going to go after Romania. I mean, Poland, they're not going to attack Poland. Why does he want Ukraine? Ukraine has the most natural resources of any country in Europe. It has the most agricultural land of any country in Europe. And it's the biggest country next to Russia in Europe. And he can take it for free. So he's going to take it, right? China will not attack Taiwan. My next prediction. So I have an idea for you. So you're about to become the wealthiest person in the world. I just want you to imagine. You're about to become the wealthiest person in the world. All right? And so you decide that you're going to murder someone just because you're bored, even though you completely control that person. Are you going to murder the person and go to jail when you're about to become the wealthiest person in the world? I doubt it. In 2 years, China will be the largest economic country in the world. They already control Taiwan. Anybody have an iPhone in here? Find me the Taiwanese flag on your iPhone. I got a news flash for you. It doesn't exist. Because China will not let Apple have the Taiwanese flag on an iPhone and sell you iPhones and create them in China. They already control Taiwan. They're about to become rich. They're never going to attack Taiwan, right? So the bottom line here is the real issue for here in the US, and you can see financial markets have kind of recovered the last day or two, is the oil problem, right? So now oil is over $100 a barrel. Here in California, well, gas is what, $5 already, all right? Gas, by the way, in California is $1.25 more than so it used to be like gas in California was equal to the rest of the nation. It's now way more than the rest of the nation, mostly for 2 reasons. So one is we have a lot more taxes. We have a carbon credit, which we don't know how much it costs. And the second thing is, can anyone tell me the last time a refinery was made in the state, in California? Last time we created a new refinery. And of course, you guys all know we have our own unique blend of gasoline they don't make anywhere else, right? So we have a closed market. Anyone want to guess? 70. That is correct. 1978 was the last time we created a new refinery here in California. That's most of the problem, right? So the Ukraine is not a big deal. It's not going to escalate. I had a friend who's going to Germany in September. They asked me if they should cancel their trip. I told them that if it's not safe to go in Germany in September, the trip will be canceled for them. And most of their friends will get a free trip to Germany on the troop transports, right, if Germany gets attacked. All right. So what's our Fed need to do? I have to watch my time, make sure you guys have some Q&A. All right. Now, what's the Fed need to do? They need to play some catch up. The Fed is so far behind, I don't even know where to start. So just to show you how far behind the Fed is, this is a graph here. So this is a graph that shows you the Fed funds rate, which is the interest rate the Fed controls, minus CPI. Right? So you can think about this as real interest rates, right? How much money you're making on your money that actually increases your purchasing power. So it's down 7%. right? It's more negative than 1973, more negative than 1979, right? That's how far the Fed is behind, right? So why isn't the Fed doing anything, right? Everyone seems very angry that the Fed's not doing anything, and it's very easy. You're Jay Powell. You have two options. You can raise interest rates so much that people demand 12 million cars per year, because we only have 12 million cars to sell, which of course we talked about would cause a huge what? Start with R. Recession. Or we can have 7% inflation. All right, I'm going to take a poll. How many people in here would like to have a huge recession? You have to pick one or the other. How many people in here would like to have a huge recession? How many people would rather have 7% inflation? Thank you. And that's exactly what Jay's doing, right? He can't fix the supply problems. So does he want to cause a huge recession for something he can't fix anyway? Highly doubtful. And it was going along well until it became a political issue. And now they have to do something. And so the markets say they're going to raise rates 4 times. And that was 3 weeks ago. And now the market thinks they're going to raise rates 6 times this year. Right? So interest rates are going to go from 0% to 1.5, which doesn't sound like much, but that's a huge change in a very short amount of time. And my other bold prediction is we'll never raise rates 6 times this year. Not going to happen. All right. I'm going to skip this just for time. Things are here in the same in California. So we're going to have a growing economy. It's not going to be a recession, but we're definitely going to have elevated inflation. It's going to take a long time for these supply chain issues to get fixed, maybe by the end of the year. People, if you want to get likes, you have to say extreme stuff. Like we know how social media works, right? By the way, social media and 24-hour news will be the death of society. I'm just making that bold prediction too. All right, but pretty much if you want to, there's not going to be stagflation. All right, so stagflation sounds like a party where you don't show up with anybody and the number of people keeps going up. That's not what it is. All right, stagflation is that we have high unemployment and high inflation. We will not have high unemployment. Right? Maybe we have elevated inflation, but we're not going to have stagflation. And like I said, these things will take a little time to resolve. All right, let me talk 5 minutes about financial markets. It's pretty easy to summarize. I want to make sure we leave some time for questions. All right, so far in 2022, it's kind of like the movie The Big Short. Anybody seen the movie The Big Short? If you haven't seen the movie, it's a great movie about the real estate crisis. They're driving around in Florida when the market's crashing, and this lady's like trying to downplay it and say, oh yeah, we just hit a little gully right now. Well, markets have been a little bit volatile this year. All right, so this is Dow, S&P, and bonds this year. All of them are down. So how many people are ignoring their 401k right now? Everybody, right? I love it. Don't pay attention, right? Market goes up, you look. Market goes down, you don't pay attention. I love psychology. All right, so market's down like 10, 15%, unless you own some of this stuff or it's game over, right? You guys know Pac-Man, when the Pac-Man dies. All right, so these are things like ARK and Netflix and Roku. So I have a blog called boundedfinance.com. I call it Bounded Finance because people are really good at extrapolating and not realizing everything has a limit. So I always like to ask people 6 months ago, or I can ask you now, how many people have not subscribed to Netflix already that are planning to subscribe this year? How many people are going to buy a Peloton this year that already have not bought a Peloton? By the way, another rule is always bet on Americans being lazy. I have a gym membership for 2 years. I've gone 0 times, right? You never want to bet on Americans not being lazy. And I'm not making fun of Americans because I am one. But all right, how many people are going to buy a Roku this year that haven't bought one? Right, so pandemic stocks, all that demand got pulled forward. People extrapolate that demand's going to last forever, and the stock becomes overpriced. Right, and that's exactly what's happened with a bunch of stocks, and they're down a lot more than 10%. All right. Meanwhile, in the crypto world, I love cryptocurrencies. All my students at UCI love cryptocurrencies. I can only tell you some of the most contentious Zooms I've ever done in my life have been over cryptocurrency. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and everyone's got milk-bone underwear on. All right, that's what's going on. I love that I got a Norm reference from Cheers on here. By the way, none of my students definitely know who Norm from Cheers is, let me tell you that. All right, so this is, of course, we had Dogecoin go way up because Elon Musk was going to talk about it on Saturday Night Live, and it was all of a sudden going to be the world's reserve currency, or I don't know what's going on. And then we had Shiba Coin because, everybody likes dogs, and now that's crashed. So crypto is not going particularly well, and then we have NFTs, which I still don't understand. If someone can explain NFTs to me and why they're worth any value, I have no idea. But they're so high, there's literally like up in the sky, they got castles now or something. I don't know what they're doing. All right. By the way, do you hear someone paid $450,000 for virtual land next to Snoop Dogg's virtual land? I'm kidding you not. Someone paid $450 for virtual land next to Snoop Dogg's virtual land, which makes me wonder, like about the movie Inception, right? Like when are we going to start thinking about creating a fake world within the fake world? Right? So we can just go ahead and like make that second world, like the second fake world within it. I don't know what's going to happen, but In any case, so just real quick on financial markets. So I don't think the stock market in particular is in a bubble. I do think there's many stocks that are in a bubble. And so my analogy is, in the late 1990s, what was the big revolution for stock trading that happened in the late 1990s? I'll give you a hint, they had a Super Bowl commercial with an annoying talking baby. No, stock one. E-Trade, right? And by the way, I was personally offended by the talking baby because I wish my baby would be quiet in the middle of the night, right? So E-Trade, right? We had basically trading went online and became super cheap, right? What's happened to trading in the last 2 years? What was the new innovation in trading in the last 2 or 3 years? Robinhood, but more specifically, everyone went commission-free, right? So is it surprising that we've had another innovation to let really uneducated people start trading, that we have probably another bubble in some particular stocks that seem very popular, right? Right, so this is the ratio of the NASDAQ index. And so NASDAQ, I tell my students, is all the companies that they know that are super exciting, like Tesla. I don't even start on Tesla. Tesla and Roku and whatever else they're excited about. And NYSE is all the stuff they actually need to live that they don't know about, like Colgate and P&G and everything else. And so you can see here that this ratio is really high right now. It's actually exceeded where we were during the tech bubble, right? So my guess is many NASDAQ stocks are probably particularly overpriced, but I'm not sure that the boring stocks are. That's kind of the bottom line, right? So the question always becomes, what's this cycle's pets.com? And so you knew where I was going with that one. I appreciate that. That's good foreshadowing. I'll give you that $20 at the end. All right, so just a couple of quick points on financial markets, and I think you guys get the idea here. So this is the Fed cycle. All right, so this is kind of, we're down here now where the Fed has cut a lot of rates because of COVID. Now they're talking about raising rates. Then they're going to go back up again. Then you get to the top where the economy's slowing and they decide they have to cut rates because the recession's coming. Then the recession comes and it goes down. And these little percentages are the percentage that you see. This is the average return of the stock market per year, right? So you can see that the stock market does really good at the bottom and really poorly everywhere else, right, on average. And the reason is because when you're at the bottom here, pretty much good news is bad news and bad news is good news, right? So if there's bad economic news, terrific. The Fed's going to keep rates low. That's great for the economy, right? If there's some good news, that's terrific. Earnings are going to do great. Stock prices should be higher. Then after you get past the stage, then bad news becomes bad news and good news becomes bad news, right? Oh my gosh, the economy's too strong. The Fed's going to have to raise rate and cut this thing off and take the punch bowl away, right? And if bad news, well, I mean, that's bad for earnings. We thought earnings were going to be good, so stock prices will go down, right? So as I mentioned here, everyone thinks that we're going to go from nothing to like 6 Fed raises in like the next 8 months. So pretty much we're going to skip here and go straight to there, right? And so probably, if you think about the stock market and you're used to these 100% returns in 2 years, I'm going to tell you you're probably going to be disappointed, right? So the stock market probably is not going to crash, but it's going to be very volatile like we've seen so far this year. Earnings growth looks like it's going to be pretty good. So people are forecasting 8%. This is the forecast over time. You can see it's been very consistent, so that's good. It's not like earnings forecasts are coming down, so it looks like earnings are going to be pretty good. And then people always wonder if there's a bubble, right? The problem is there's no bubbles in stocks because bond yields are really, really low. Right? I'm going to blow your mind. You ready to have your mind blown? Real estate's cheap. Mind blown? Real estate's cheap, right? So this is affordability of housing, right? So this is the bubble, which sticks out a lot. This is way before 1982. This is back in the 1980s when real interest rates were really high. So why is things so much cheaper than 2006 if housing prices are way above 2006? People's wages are up 70% on average since 2006. That's one thing. Anybody remember what mortgage rates were in 2006? 7-8%. Right? Mortgage rates are half of that. People have 70% more income. All of a sudden, housing is cheap. Right? So people are like, oh, housing's so expensive. We're in a bubble. Ooh. I would argue we're probably not in a bubble. I don't think that's super cheap anymore, but it's definitely way cheaper than it was during the housing bubble. Right? So these prices are not unsustainable. That's my point. All right, in terms of stock market, the stock market's almost more expensive than it's ever been. Right? So this is a price to earnings ratio. So this tells you basically how expensive stocks are. So this is looking at past earnings, looks really expensive. Forward earnings looks really expensive. But again, if you compare it to bonds, it looks really cheap. Right? So the black line here is the interest rate on the 10-year bond. The green line here is your dividend yield on the S&P 500, how much dividends you get. You can see bonds are usually way above stocks, but now they're equal. Right? So again, based on this, it looks like stocks are really cheap. everything looks very expensive in absolute terms, but when you compare it to interest rates in the economy, things look really cheap. Right? That's the bottom line, right? So you have kind of this dichotomy of how you look at things. All right, one thing for sure is we're going to have low returns going forward, right? So this is a very complicated plot of a lot of little dots, all right? Oop, I didn't mean to go forward. I'm at the thing. So this is your PE ratio. So farther on the right means you're paying more for stocks. This is your average return per year for the next 10 years. So you can see on average, as you pay more and more and more for stocks, of course, your return goes down, right? The more you pay for something, the lower return you get. And you can see basically where we are. Stock returns maybe 3-5% on average the next 10 years, which again, doesn't mean we're in a bubble. It just means relative to bonds, right? Returns are going to be relatively low. Bonds are yielding 2%. So if you buy a 10-year bond for 2% yield for the next 10 years, you get like 2%. So the bottom line is asset returns will probably be pretty low here. All right, I'm going to skip this because I want to get to questions. So just in conclusion, I think we'll have a good year for the economy. I think SoCal will be fine. I don't think there's anything different here than anywhere else. I think we have a lot more disposable income here than the average part of the economy. So I think disposable income items might be even more price pressure than we have in other places. So like Chanel bags are up like 30% year over year. Do you guys know that? The big flat bag is up to $8,800. Right? So there's actually people on the forums arguing you should buy Chanel bags and put them in your closet, and it's a better return in the stock market anyway. And by I mean some people, my wife. All right, so supply is probably the limiting factor. You know, I don't think we're going to have a crash in the stock market, but I think things will be very volatile this year. So if you're one of those people that panics when stocks goes down and gets really excited when stocks go up, don't look at your account all year. If you're an opportunistic person, I think this is a good year to be opportunistic, right? In terms of when things go down a lot, I think that's a good time to buy. When things go up a lot, you could trim a little bit if you want. And otherwise, I just think on average, I think probably asset returns will be a little bit low the next 5-10 years. All right, I think we had a pretty, let's do some Q&A. You guys got questions?
Let's go back to the slide you had on purchasing gasoline.
Yeah.
With everybody driving and saying they're at work, how productive are we? Or how productive were we, and how more productive can we be when we go back to work?
That's a great question. So my father told me when I was young that 85% of people didn't know how to work. And when he told me that when I was a kid, I thought he was really, really mean. But as I get older, I realized he was being really, really nice, right? So I think probably not working at the office has probably not made people more productive. But I do think probably people actually work more hours because they don't have to drive. I think the work at home experiment will end at some point because pretty much you have what we call like a selection problem. The really driven people are going to show up at the office. The really undriven people are not going to come to the office. And it's exactly the opposite of what you want, right? The people you want to keep your eye on aren't going to be there. So I have a friend that actually bought something from Amazon that can move his mouse around randomly. So it looks like he's working, but he's out playing golf. So I had him order me one. No, I'm just joking. But certainly, I mean, I think always, I think I said earlier, right? You always bet on lazy, right? And so, but I think I think people are going to realize, I think companies are going to realize that people are more productive in the office because you have that spontaneity, creativity that you don't get when you're not in the office. I think the other thing is that employees that want to move ahead are going to realize that, you know, you're going to be much more likely to get promoted if someone sees your face than if you're just on Zoom. So I think that's the work at home experiment. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, as far as the employment side, I have a number of manufacturing friends who said they can't find the employees to come in. Some of that government, initiatives or helping them stay at home by supplementing through welfare or through other means, you might say?
No, I mean, I think a lot of it's just, I mean, all else equal, like who wants to go to the office, right? And so there's lots of jobs available, so you can find a job where people don't have to go to the office. So I think that's just some of it. And again, there's just not enough people. So I heard from a lot of kind of lower end retail jobs, they can't find anyone and they don't know where their workers will get. Well, guess where they are? They're working on an Amazon warehouse that have opened up in Riverside County, right? So I just think there's, in general, that people have a lot of choice in where they work right now. And so I think that people, all else equal, they don't want to go into work, which kind of here in SoCal, I kind of sort of understand, right? Traffic sucks here. right? When people here complain about the weather, I laugh at them because I lived in Boston for 27 years. And when people from Boston complain about traffic, I laugh at them because I lived here 13 years now. And I just think that's the reason. I don't think it's any government program that's really done it.
Raising of the minimum wage, I know you said you're paying $25 for McDonald's, but a lot of the teens, well, maybe if they can't find jobs if they want to, but a lot of the teens not be able to get in the workplace. Has that been an effect as well?
Yeah, so I think the teenage thing, it's really interesting. I don't really know. So I mean, I'm young enough where I had a job when I was in high school, right? And most of the people, my friends, had jobs in high school, and I've overcome tremendous privilege to be where I am today. So it's not like I needed to have a job. It was that discipline instilled in you to learn how to have a job and show up at the job. And I think for me, honestly, having a job in high school was probably one of the best experiences. You work your ass off for 40 hours a week in the frozen food department, you can't feel your hands, and your paycheck's like $47, and you're like, this sucks, right? I definitely want to get a college education and not be a frozen food manager. And then two, you learn really very quickly about who's a good and a bad boss. Like my first boss was an alcoholic that used to go out drinking with my brother's physics teacher, and he fell off the bar stool one night, and he was really pissed off, and he took all the yogurts and smashed them on I don't know why I remember this, but. And then my next boss was super good, right? He ran a hardware store, and he had 6 people, and 5 of them he inherited, and he knew how to, like, everybody's best traits, what they're most productive at, and he made sure he allocated people so they were the best. And so you learn so much, and I think kids these days, like, it's so competitive to get into colleges now and other things that, parents just helicopter them, and they're just so busy that they don't have time to work. But yeah, right now I think if a 16-year-old showed up at McDonald's, they would probably get hired. Other questions? Did I make you all sad? Things are okay. We're all rich. We're in Southern California. It's all good. I remember I'll tell you one funny story. You guys remember the Occupy movement?
Oh, yeah.
So they had an Occupy movement in like the little town square at UCI. Not UCI, at Irvine, like the city hall there. And I remember I pulled up to the light and I stopped, and some guy's banging on his thing with the F the 1% sign like in my face, and I rolled down my window. I'm like, dude, you're in Irvine, California. You are the 1%. What the hell are you protesting? Anyway, question in the back here. Go ahead.
Oh, sure. Not quite sure how to ask this. So, the new builders are being forced, for what little housing we have, we're doing a lot of development in South Orange County, forced to put solar on everything. We're being forced to recycle our green waste and pay for it. And yet, China and India are still spewing out greenhouse gases for everyone. So is there a greenhouse gas impact on our economy that we just haven't realized yet? Or do we just suck it up and wait it out for the next 10 years or so?
Okay, so I have to be careful answering this. I don't want to get fired.
You're South County, say whatever you want.
It is still being taped, sir. So I don't know exactly what your question is asking, but I'll make 2 comments. I think generally speaking that we are very, very bad at environmental accounting, right? So people buy their Tesla and they think they're saving the world because they don't use any gasoline. Well, most of the power they pump in their Tesla is from coal factories anyway, right? Number 2, does anybody know the useful life of a solar panel? Here we go. Here's some trivia for everybody.
It's not very long. It's not very long.
It's longer than 10 years. It's 20 years. Does anybody know how many years it takes that solar panel to generate the amount of energy it took to create? It takes 19 years. So we are very bad at mental accounting because no one takes into account how much damage to the environment happens from mining lithium to create the batteries that goes into a Tesla that then gets used up by all the stuff that it takes to create the energy to go in the Tesla. So in my personal opinion, people don't realize how much of our pollution we've exported to other countries, right? And they're going to start to see it as we open up these lithium mines in Nevada that are basically going to destroy all the land out there. So I'm not sure how that answers your question, but I agree with you that we are very bad at mental accounting. I mean, I'm not making a political statement. It's just true, right? I think I should have worn my red suit today. All right, we got time for maybe one more question. Anybody got one more question for me? I couldn't have been that thorough. You guys have to have one more question.
Who's going to win the war?
Who's going to win what war? Yeah, which one? Which one? Anyone?
I got a quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you worried about the inversion of the yield curve, or do you think the Fed, if they do increase rates 4 or 5 times, will cut it quick, and maybe we have a rate cut by the end of the year?
All right, so I like this guy. I like you. That's a great question. And you like to, I bet you the guy that livens up the party, right? No? All right. So, okay, so let me give a little background here. So the yield curve, we have different, we have like a 1-year interest rate, 2-year interest rate, blah, 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 10-year interest rate. So people look at the difference between the 10-year interest rate and the 2-year interest rate. And that's what they will call the yield curve. So in a normal economy, the 10-year interest rate is higher than the 2-year interest rate, right? So what that signifies is basically like over time, the Fed's going to have to raise interest rates because people expect the economy to grow, right? And an inverted yield curve is the opposite. So the inverted yield curve is you have a very high 2-year interest rate and a relatively lower 10-year interest rate. And what that means is we call it inverted yield curve. So what that means is the Fed's going to have to lower interest rates because growth is going to slow, right? So just to give you an idea, it's the best indicator about whether or not there's an expected recession. So pretty much every single time that the yield curve has inverted over the last 70 years, we've had a recession, right? So it's basically 100%, and there's only been one time where it's inverted and we haven't had a recession. So it's pretty much like the best forecaster you can have because it's like your smoke alarm, right? It goes off when there's a fire, but it's not like your smoke alarm where it doesn't go off all the times in the middle of the night when there's not a fire and you're trying to sleep, right? It's a very good indicator. So the question is like the yield curve, the difference between those two it's still positive, but it's getting smaller. And the question is whether if the Fed raises, it's going to invert and we're going to have a recession and they have to cut. Great question. So this gets back to my prediction. We're never going to have 6 rate increases this year, right? So I don't know if you remember back in 2018, we were supposed to have 4 Fed rate increases. We did 2. Everything went to hell and they stopped, right? And so my prediction is now that the market's down 20%, they'll probably do 1 or 2 times here. They'll take a step back and probably wait. So I'm putting the over-under on 3 this year. I don't think we'll have a cut, but I don't think they'll even get close to 6. All right, so I have a hard stop because I have to pick up my son from daycare, another part of being a COVID parent. But otherwise, it's been really nice to be here. I want to just a couple of things. One, being a politician is definitely, in this day and age, regardless if you're Democrat or Republican, a very thankless job. So I want to thank the elected officials for volunteering to be elected officials because I would never run for school board. Just letting you know. So why don't we give them a round of applause when they're here. And then otherwise, I just want to thank Brian for inviting me here to be here today, and I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great year, and hopefully see you around. Thank you.